Hey guys, welcome to the Gods Unchained beta with the TheProfesserf. Alright, so on March 5th, we concluded our community ran tournament. This was Madness of the Gods Part 3. It was presented by Triggerhaven and Copper Pitch. This was a tournament that was open to all Gods Unchained players. It was free, and it had a $1,000 prize pool. So it started on February 13th, and the final match was on March 5th, a couple days ago, and we have our winner. Mirage88 took first place. There was an entrance field of over 100 players, and Mirage was the last person standing and crowned champion. This is Mirage's third consecutive tournament win. In Madness of the Gods 1 and 2, Mirage took those tournaments, and he completed a three-peat by winning the third one as well. So I have the pleasure today of speaking with Mirage, and everybody listen up. This is a special treat. We get to hear from our champion. Hey guys, we got a treat today. I got TST's Mirage88 as my guest on today's interview. For those of you that don't know, Mirage88 is a member of TeamStreamTeam, TST. He has multiple top 10 ranked weekend finishes. He holds the highest MMR in Gods Unchained. I believe it's at 1700, maybe a little over as well. And he also is the winner of multiple community ran tournaments. So I have the pleasure of speaking with him today and picking his brain. So welcome, Mirage.
Hey, good to see you, Professor. Good to talk.
Yeah, thanks for spending some time with us. First question I just want to ask real quick, kind of personalize the name that people see on the screen. Mirage88, what's the story with that username, if you're willing to share?
Probably similar to most people in my age group, early 30s, right? So sort of came of age at the dawn of the internet. It's kind of whatever you picked when you were 8 sticks with you for the rest of the way, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
I couldn't tell you exactly why it's Mirage, right? And then 88's a birth year, right? I just like the name, and eventually it sticks with you, and it becomes part of your online persona, and it sort of sticks. So
Yeah, at that point you probably have set it up on multiple different game platforms, so you just kind of try to keep it consistent, right?
yeah, and I've been well known in some other online communities. So like some people know me exclusively by my online name. Like I don't know if you've had this happen where you're at a real life event and people will call me Mirage, and like that's a pretty normal occurrence for me
Okay.
for the last like 5 years. So it becomes like a second name, which is kind of an interesting phenomena. So
Yeah, so it'd be kind of strange now if you change it and people will just end up getting confused, right?
oh no, yeah, I couldn't change it at this point. Like
Okay.
a
No,
bunch of
it's a,
people know me by that exclusively.
yeah, no, it's a great name. I just wanted to kind of hear the backstory on it, and like you said, I think a lot of us, gamed when we were early on, so we ended up, just picking something at that time that sounded cool or something important or something memorable to us, and we kind of just stick with it. So yeah, nice name, cool, I like it. All right, let me go into
Thanks.
some Gods Unchained questions. So, how long have you been playing Gods Unchained?
I started December 2019, so that'd be a little over a year at this point, about a year and 4 months. I don't remember how I found it initially, but I'd always been a big Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering guy. So when I saw that there was a card chain that was using NFTs for cards, it was just super intriguing, and I had to check it out.
Okay, so prior to Gods Unchained, you mentioned you were a big NFT guy. So did you already have sort of that crypto side experience?
I had knowledge of crypto and interest in crypto, and I knew what NFTs were. I didn't actually own any NFTs at the time, but I loved the concept, especially for gaming. And this seemed like the first, and it was, to my knowledge, the first game that was high quality that was using NFTs. So I love the concept of digital ownership of cards, being able to trade and resell them. It was, like I said, having come from Hearthstone and Magic, where you build collections that you then can't do anything with. It was just super intriguing. So I wasn't like a massive crypto guy until this, and this was kind of my entryway into crypto, into Ethereum, into NFTs. And I've continue to go deeper down the rabbit hole. So.
It's your gateway drug, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same thing for me. I have game experience and card gaming experience, but nothing really on the crypto side. And this again, same thing, like you said, the draw for me was being able to recreate that experience when we were much younger, when cards were actual paper, and we were able to buy and sell and trade with our friends. So I think being able to kind of see that concept on the digital front was what sort of pulled me in.
Yeah, have you gotten interested in other NFTs since then? Like, have you moved like beyond Gods Unchained, or are you starting your maybe later moving past?
No, I'm a slow mover, late adapter. So really, late adopter. So really, Gods Unchained still is my NFT first, and then although I guess my recent accomplishment is Gods Unchained's referral program, the Stay Play Get Paid. I actually opened a Coinbase account. So prior to that,
Nice. Okay.
yeah, prior to that, it was
Yeah,
just,
no, you gotta start somewhere. Gotta start somewhere.
yeah. But prior to that, it was just MetaMask wallet, and that even that, I was just like, is this safe? Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's not quite user friendly yet, right? Like there's some UX improvements to be made before I think we get like true mass market adoption. In fact, when I first started playing Gods Unchained, I mentioned this was like my first entry into the space. The first MetaMask wallet I set up, I didn't yet understand the importance of private keys.
Oh, okay.
So the first MetaMask wallet I set up, I deposited some ETH into for the sake of buying Gods Unchained cards. Like that was why I did it. But since I didn't realize that, eventually I like got logged out of the MetaMask, and when I set it up, I didn't realize how important private keys were, so I didn't even write them down.
Oh,
I just didn't understand. So it was just completely lost. So I've got like a couple Demogorgons.
Oh.
I've got like some stuff that's gonna, that now is pretty high value. It's just completely lost to me.
Wait,
So,
you're not that guy
it's
that won that.
unfortunate.
You're not that guy that won the Mythic raffle and never claimed it, right? Is that you?
Oh no. It's not that bad.
Okay.
I didn't find Gods Unchained when Genesis was being sold. I only found it afterwards. So I only found it after the raffle had happened.
Okay.
I wish I had found it earlier.
Phew.
But no. I didn't lose like. I lost whatever, some, like whatever, some Demogorgon, some other high value cards. So who knows? Maybe eventually it's like a couple $1,000s of cards that
Yeah.
I lost access to. But that's the risk, unfortunately, right now, because it's not super clear, I think, to new users how all of this works, right? So like now I understand it because I've been in the Ethereum space for the better part of a little over a year. So now I understand the importance, and I wouldn't make a mistake like that again. But certainly it's not quite user friendly,
Yeah, no, I totally hear
people.
you.
Yeah.
And that's one of my concerns with, as you know, recently we've seen an explosion of new players, and I'm just wondering how
Yeah.
many of them are, just maybe from Hearthstone or Magic that kind of like me have no experience with the crypto side, and kind of like what you said, they're just setting up the instructions, just to follow the instructions, but not really understanding the potential risk. So that's definitely something that's I'm wondering that hopefully some sort of education or communication comes down so people really understand the importance of that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think you're making great educational content. Maybe that's a good one to tackle at some point. It's just like
Oh yeah, no,
the super basics of Ethereum, and like making sure that you understand why you own your cards and how important your private keys are to not losing your cards, and that sort of thing. I think would be great for new people.
hey, no, that's a good idea. Thank you. Yeah, maybe I'll jot that away in the back of my mind and put that on my storyboard of ideas. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned that you previously played Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering. So was that your primary card gaming experience that you transferred over to Gods Unchained, or did you have other experience, like maybe some people came from Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've played trading card games pretty much my entire life. The very first one I did was Yu-Gi-Oh when I was back in like middle school, right? Uh, then I transitioned pretty quickly to Magic as maybe a slightly more competitive version of that. And I actually, in high school, there was I don't think this exists anymore. There was a thing called the Junior Super Series, the Magic the Gathering ran.
Okay.
It was a tournament for people under 18. And I actually won a scholarship to college playing Magic at the time.
Wow.
Through the Junior Super Series. And that was sort of my first large tournament exposure in trading card games. And then I dropped it when I was in college. I didn't play for a while, just going through the college experience. And then eventually Hearthstone came out, and I sort of got back into gaming at a high level and reached some of the top ranks of Hearthstone ranks. Then got back into Magic, reached top 1200 in Mythic and Magic, and qualified for. And then Gods Unchained came out, and then now Gods Unchained is my primary competitive outlet for trading card games.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, because I was about to ask. I know. I mean, everyone that knows the top players at Gods Unchained considers you at the top, or at least one of the top. And I was just going to ask about how competitive your background was prior, and it sounds like you've been fairly competitive in card games ever since you got into it.
Yeah. No, I've always been a bit of a tryhard when it comes to trading card games. I love the strategy of it. I love trying to figure out the metas of different games. So yeah, no, I've been a competitive card game player for the better part of 20 years at this point.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's a lot of experience, and I guess that's part of sort of the experience and building process of reaching the top of the level at any game you play is really sort of building on those prior experience and pushing yourself forward, which you're doing very well.
Yeah, for sure. The previous experience definitely helps out, right? You develop a bit of a process for how you can improve your decks and improve your gameplay and how to assess different meta games. So those have definitely been, that experience has definitely been super helpful.
Yeah, so kind of branching off that, so how much did you feel from your prior experience was transferable, and did you have to pick up new skills in Gods Unchained? Because I think we have a lot of new players coming over from other card games. So I'm just wondering, what other skills do you think it might be worth picking up, considering that Gods Unchained might be slightly different?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference in Gods Unchained is the Sanctum and understanding how the Sanctum plays into strategy, and that can take a little bit of practice. It plays very similarly to Hearthstone, right? So I think if you played Hearthstone before, you're going to be good at this game. Like if you were good at Hearthstone, you're going to be good at Gods Unchained. They're very, very similar in terms of their strategy. One difference, and this is a slight nuance, is the Sanctum in that, and I think what a lot of people don't. First off, I think a lot of people who start thinking don't even realize what Sanctum is, right? It's just a picture of 3 cards on the right hand side, and I think a lot of new players don't even realize that they can, how the favor mechanic works, that they can spend a favor to get those cards, that it's a shared pool of cards that your opponent can access as well. Because that's where a lot of the strategy comes in, is planning a couple turns ahead in terms of how you're going to gain favor, and then which cards are important that you're working towards in the Sanctum and how that works into your strategy, as well as preventing your opponent from getting cards from the Sanctum. Like I think a lot of people just think of the Sanctum as a way to get cards for yourself, but I think sort of the top tier of players is thinking more like, what in the Sanctum is going to help my opponent the most? And even if it doesn't help me, maybe I buy that just to prevent them from having it. Things like that are sort of the nuances of Gods Unchained that are different than other card games.
Right. No, I totally agree. I remember when I first started. I recently joined. I would consider myself a new Gods Unchained player. Started early December, so just a few months old. But I think literally I ignored the Sanctum, didn't know anything about it. I think at least for a good 1 week or 2 weeks of playing. And when we first start, we're playing a lot. So I was playing a lot, and I had no idea what that was. And I was like, what is this numbers? Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right about how it's once you get into you know a more competitive take on the game, you start realizing how important it is and how it plays into strategy. But prior to that, it's definitely something that's new players don't understand as quite as well.
Yeah, I think they definitely need a better tutorial for players in terms of what the Sanctum is. Right now, you just kind of have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, or really get to that point where you're dominating and then your opponent uses it to their advantage and you lose and you're like, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool, cool. All right, so back to the tournament, Mirage. I mean, obviously it feels good to be winning, but I mean, any other feelings on taking down your third consecutive tournament from our friends Copper Pitch and Trigger Haven, and you know, let me know how you feel about just winning this tournament.
Yeah, obviously it feels great. It's just, I think these tournaments are a lot of fun. It's just fun to have a different metagame, right? So, you play these weekend ranks, and it's pretty similar. Like we go pretty long times between balance updates. It can be as long as a couple months sometimes between balance patches. So it's just fun to have something that sort of breaks that up, where you're playing with a different set of restrictions in terms of the god powers you can use, in terms of the cards you can play. And that leads to different metagames, right? So you're trying to solve an entirely new puzzle every time you do one of these tournaments, and that's just a lot of fun. So yeah, obviously it feels great to win them, but more than anything, it's just really fun to play in. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This was, I would say, my first major tournament I was able to participate in, considering I joined fairly recently. But yeah, to me, really, the bottom line I felt was one, I got to play with players I usually don't match up with, just depending on different schedules and time zones. But definitely the fun factor was there, especially the way it was streamed made it feel like a real event. It was a real event, and it made it really, I think, a really great community event.
Yeah, and yeah, those guys are great commentators. They make it a lot of fun on their Twitch stream.
Yeah.
The community as a whole is great, right? Like that's part of what sort of kept me here in Gods Unchained. Even though the user base was pretty small, I think the community is pretty tight knit, and everyone's really nice and great. So the community is a big part of it too. It just makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to add, for me, same thing. The community's great. Everyone's supportive of each other, and just a little plug. TSD is definitely a big part of the community. They're supportive to new and experienced players. So if anyone out there listening to this haven't joined TSD Discord, they have their own Discord server. I'll add a link in the description, and you guys can check that out. But TSD definitely a good place to hang out and learn from. So Mirage,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. Just wondering. I know since you did, there was two other tournaments that was before this one. Um, did you feel any pressure? I mean, you mentioned you had a competitive background already, played in big tournaments, but sort of, I think going into this third tournament, a lot of the people that played in the other tournament probably, had some sort of expectation that you would do well at least. Did you feel like you had any pressure at all, or you feel like this was just like, hey, let me just jump in there and see how I do? And I guess how is that how you approach most tournaments that you're in?
Yeah, I didn't particularly feel any pressure, right? Having won the two previous, you kind of feel like you're free rolling a little bit, right? Like
Mm,
I've already accomplished a good bit. If I happen to lose this one,
right.
no big deal.
Okay.
Was kind of how I felt about it. So it was just fun. I wasn't too worried about it. I do try to win, right? So it's not like I am taking it seriously. Like
Yeah.
it's a competitive thing for me, and that's part of the fun. So I was taking it seriously, but if I had lost, I wouldn't have been upset, and I wasn't too stressed about it.
Yeah, no, that's totally a great attitude to approach, tournament and gaming in general. Before I, jump into specific tournament questions, quick question. Anything else you'd like to share about yourself that you'd like the players to know?
Uh, I mean, I guess the most interesting thing about my background. So I gave my sort of trading card game background, but the last few years I've been a professional daily fantasy sports player,
Mm,
and sort of taken that. That's how my brain kind of works, is sort of playing through the game theory of different games, and that was a way to make a living off of professional gaming in some sense.
nice, nice.
So for people that aren't familiar with daily fantasy, it's you can think of it as super similar to sports betting. You're just playing against other players and trying to pick players from different sports to do well, and then you put money up. So I did that professionally for the last 3 or so years.
Wow. Oh, that's impressive. Didn't know that about you. Thanks for sharing. All right. So let me jump into the actual tournament that we had. So we had, let me see here. Let me pull up the right image here. We had the Madness of the Gods 3, hosted by Trigger Haven and Copper Pitch. The tournament started back in February, and it just recently concluded um, 2 days ago on Friday, March the 5th. Um, I'm talking to Mirage here, who won the contest. He got a pretty good prize pull. So just questions about the specific tournament and your approach to it, Mirage. Just sort of from people that are not experienced in tournaments, what was sort of your approach, your strategy, your game plan on preparing for the tournament?
Sure. So the first step is certainly figure out what deck you want to play in the tournament. So you need to assess what the restrictions are. In this case, the restrictions were you couldn't play the Blast Wave or Clear Mind God Powers for Magic. You couldn't play the Onslaught God Power for War. So in my mind, those kind of immediately got taken off the table as viable options, because Blast Wave and Clear Mind are the best God Powers for Magic, and the other two are not great, to be honest. Onslaught is also the primary war god power, so I was assessing the other four gods, Death, Light, Deception, and Nature, to figure out how that was going to play. and started thinking through in my head with those as the primary options that my opponents would probably play, what works best. So you just work through that sort of mental process of like, okay, how do I think this metagame is going to play out? I ended up building decks for all four of those gods, and then for me, it's obviously helpful because I have, as you mentioned, I'm part of Team TST, and so all of the TST team members were involved in the tournament, and so that provided sort of a good practice ground for each of us to sort of bounce ideas off each other, play some decks against each other, figure out what we each thought was best, and it sort of just allows you to get a little bit of experience before the tournament starts.
Right on, right on. So, just kind of sharing from my point of view, heard the same rule set as you just described. So this was the funny thing in my mind when I heard that Blast Wave and Clear Mind were banned along with Onslaught. Immediately the thought came to my mind was that so part of the restriction is is core cards only, welcome cards only, and the new expansion Trial of the Gods only. So that was it. Genesis cards were excluded. So with that sort of restrictions in my mind, I thought aggro deception would be pretty strong with Shadow of Lethanon and Dark Knives. Um, I I didn't I watched most of the matchups and talked to some people and didn't really hear someone running a hard deception aggro deck. What are your thoughts? Was that one of the decks that you thought would do good, or did you feel like it wasn't tournament worthy?
So it was one of the decks I mentioned that I checked out. The reason I don't think it's good is because of nature. So nature, I think, was super strong in this meta, and specifically the Leech Life God Power, right?
Okay.
So the Leech Life God Power kind of destroys aggro deception. It can kill all of their hidden creatures just with the God Power, right? So hidden doesn't help versus Leech Life. It'll just hit a random creature. And there's just so much removal in nature, especially untargeted removal. So between Canopy Barrage, Lightning Strike, Leech Life, the Hunt, right? These are all cards that absolutely destroy aggro deception. So that was more the problem than anything, is that I knew that nature was going to be popular and the deception just doesn't play well against nature. So it kind of got hard countered out of this meta.
Okay. So for in your mind, creating sort of like a tier deck for this a tier list for this tournament, you had nature as definitely the overwhelmingly stronger deck.
Yeah, I mean, the counters for it got banned, right?
Right.
Generally, the things that work well against nature would be like Onslaught War, or it would be, Control Magic, right? And those, to some degree, got limited here because you couldn't play the best God Powers for those archetypes. So it just made nature by far the best pick, and that's why you saw almost everybody playing nature in the tournament.
Yeah. How would you rank the other decks? You mentioned you made decks for all four gods. So after nature, what would you have said in your mind? It's just kind of theory crafting now that the tournament's over, but just kind of just to hear how you rank the other gods in this tournament.
I personally probably would have put light next.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can make a pretty strong light deck. Then, even though Magic got nerfed, I think Magic comes after that. But I mean, I did end up playing Magic in the finals, and there's a reason.
Right.
Magic is strong even with a terrible God Power.
Yeah.
So I would say that those are the second tier, would have been Light and Magic in my mind, and then after that, I think Aggro Def and Aggro Deception would have been a tier after that.
Okay.
And then War, I just don't think War was viable at all.
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm not even sure if anyone bothered to try. So just real quick. So given that you just kind of said that was your tier list, did you end up playing? I know. The finals you switched to Magic, but prior to that, was Nature basically your only deck that you used for most of the tournament?
Yeah. Up until the final match, I played exclusively Nature. I just think it was the strongest thing. There's no like true counter in this particular meta for Nature. Like nothing like is just really good against it. You're always going to have a good shot with Nature. If you're a good player, then and you want to sort of trust your skills to pilot the deck, then there wasn't a lot of reason not to use it, to be honest.
Okay. No, that's totally a good point. So then, yeah, that kind of segues into our next conversation, talking about the finals. I would say, maybe not for you, but I think to a lot of people that's watched the streams of the previous tournament battles, everybody it was basically nature versus nature versus nature versus nature. So you kind of pulled a surprise there and switched to magic, and it looked like it was a control ramp version. You took out. I'm sorry. You switched over to Mage Volt because, like you said, the top two god powers that were best for it were were removed, so you went to Mage Vault. So and I think that was a great adjustment on your part. You mentioned how you saw Dragon's previous match, and then you kind of picked up on some things that helped you make the decision there. Maybe you could explain that a little bit about how you kind of decided to make that call, and whether or not you were willing to stick it out for all three matches, or was there a point where you felt like, okay, I'm going to switch back to nature?
Yeah, no, I was planning to stick it out with Magic. But to your point, I had seen his semifinal match because we were part of this. We were both doing our semifinal matches on stream, so we both saw each other's semifinal games.
Right.
I saw that he wasn't playing as aggressive of a list. He wasn't playing super low curve. He was playing things like Green Giants. I didn't see the super aggro cards that I would be worried about. I didn't see too many of the extra 1 and 2 drops that you'd be playing in an aggressive list. I didn't see things like Firewine. I didn't see anything like that made me worried that it was super aggressive. So I figured, and with a slower deck, the problem with Nature is it's really, really tough for Nature to remove big front lines. If you can play a Hawaiian Elite against Nature, you just win. There's nothing they can do. Which actually makes ramp magic pretty good regardless of God Power. You just ramp to 8, you drop a Hawaiian Elite, and you win the game.
Right.
So I figured that was pretty viable, given that he wasn't playing a super aggressive list, that I could survive to the 8 mana turn. So that was the plan. I did do a couple of quick test matches with one of my teammates in between the semifinal and the final. So shout out to Apollo. He helped me run a couple test matches just to confirm that idea wasn't crazy.
Oh, nice.
So we did a few test matches, and the Magic list did pretty well. So I stuck with it.
Okay. And that Magic list, was there anything specific? You mentioned the big front line, but was there anything specific you threw in just to kind of for that final matchup for Dragon's deck, or was it just pretty much a standard ramp early removal and just kind of the healing elites?
Yeah, I mean, it was the sort of core there. It was Hawaiian Elites and Cyclops Defenders, right? So that you can put in 4 big front lines that don't get removed by a single Lightning Strike. Yeah. Because Cyclops Defender has 10 health, right?
Right.
So between those two, it's just really tough for Nature to break through. So once you start dropping those, you win. And with Cyclops Defender, it's actually on 7 mana, not 8. So it helps you to get to the 8 mana Hawaiian Elites.
Right.
Plus you've got Astric Implosions, which help you clear boards. Plus the other removal, as you mentioned. So yeah, no, it's you still have access to the 4 ramp cards, double Elixir, double Mana Toad. So yeah, no, it was the only difference was I was debating whether to even play Echo or not. It ended up costing me in the second game, I believe, because I had Echo in my hand early and I couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So I actually cut it for the. I made an adjustment and cut it for the third game. You just don't need it, right? You win with Hawaiian Elite, so I just got rid of the
Echo. What did you substitute for Echo?
Just some cheaper cards. Okay. I think I put in an extra Soothsayer just to help find the ramp or the Astric Implosion to keep me alive.
Okay, yeah, nice move. I mean, like I said, I think part of getting to the finals and being consistent and winning the tournament is those little things, that like little adjustments that you're talking about. I mean, not only did you make an adjustment from Nature to Magic, while people are watching the stream, you even made just like you said, just made another adjustment from the second match to the third match. So I mean, I think that's just great how sort of your thought process and your strategy approach to matches is something that I think a lot of players can learn from and adapt to really improve their performance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's part of the value of these tournaments is you get to see some of the top players and how they play, and hopefully it helps new players to sort of learn the strategy.
Yeah. So kind of moving a little bit away from the tournament now. I know you're well aware that we've had a lot of new players joining, and a lot of these new players are joining at a time where it's harder for them to acquire Genesis cards because of the cards are out there listed singly, but it's hard to get those cards due to the cost and also the gas fees. And IMX will definitely help when that comes out. But so a lot of these new players are coming in. They're probably going to be looking at core and welcome cards most of the time. They might buy some trial cards. It just happens that the tournament is exactly that format: core, welcome, and trial cards. So how would just kind of a quick meta look of how your tournament decks do you feel would compete against the current meta? Like how competitive do you think those tournament decks would be, where a player is only has access to core, welcome, and trial cards?
They would be okay. The true answer is that like the decks that I played in the tournament were geared towards the meta of the tournament, and they weren't geared towards beating decks that include Genesis cards.
Oh, okay.
I do think you can build good decks geared towards beating Genesis cards, right? Like the current meta that you see in Weekend Ranked is a lot of control magic, which is kind of my fault because I used it to win 2 weekends in a row, and then it got super popular. But you also see a ton of light aggro is the other sort of display to watch. So you need a deck that can do well against both. And since there's so much control magic, and specifically since Demogorgon is a thing that you need to be worried about in Genesis, you need to play anti-sleep cards. So if you have an Ironclad Minotaur or 2 Ironclad Minotaurs from Trial of the Gods packs, it's a rare Trial of the Gods, I believe, or is it a common? Might even be a common. But if you can get 2 of those, then that would for sure be in any free-to-play deck I was playing right now for the meta, because you need to be able to counter Demogorgons. Even if you can't get a Demogorgon yourself, you need to be able to counter it. So you need to play 2 Ironclad Minotaurs, I think.
Right.
That's an example, but it's a long way to say I wouldn't play exactly the decks that I played in this tournament, because you're trying to win in a different meta than the tournament is in.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's good that you brought that up. I just because I mean we do have a tendency as coming new to a game, you're just like, okay, what did this player do? What did that player do? But it's great that you made that distinction where your decks were specifically tuned for the rule set that was applied. And then someone coming into the game just because they have access to the same cards of Core, Welcome, and Trial doesn't mean those exact decks would work. They'd have to, like you said, sort of take a step back and then tweak it to match what they will be facing.
Yep, exactly. You'll want things like Ironclad Mentors. You want things like Smart Basilisk is another thing people have that's good in this meta. So yeah, it's just teching to the meta. Always try to tech to the meta.
Right. So we talked a little about the new players, and you kind of already gave them a tip about sort of being smart with the meta. Any advice for the new players that's just joining in? Not even the players that are coming from Hearthstone, but totally new players that have little or no card playing experience. They're getting to GU and they want to be competitive. Like if you were in that position, I mean, which you're not because you have a ton of experience, but let's say someone that's just coming into the game, because they're excited about crypto. They were like, oh, you know what, that looks like a fun game. Like, what would your advice for them be?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be good at the game, I think the best way to start is to watch people who are who are good at the game and ask them questions, right? So certainly, like you're doing great educational content, so I know you have good YouTube videos up for new players. On TST, we do a lot of streams where people can hop in and feel free to ask us any questions they want, as well as in our Discord. We get a bunch of new players that can come in, and we help them with decks that they can build using just the initial cards that they have. So the easiest way is to watch people that are good play and to ask questions. And like I said, it's a great community. People are super welcoming. People don't have. No one should be worried about coming in and asking questions or anything. So that's the easiest way. Is join some Discords. There's the TST Discord. Copper Pitcher in the tournament has a Discord. There's a bunch of good places to go for good content and help yourself get better.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and echo that. I think watching the streamers, TST is one of the major streamers for the game. You can learn a lot from them. And at the same time, as Mirage just said, their Discord is super helpful. There's a lot of people on the team, a lot of people that's supportive of the team, and they're in there. They're helping new players and experienced players both alike. So yeah, definitely I echo that. And not only besides sort of just trying to get better or whatnot, I think there's also a sense of community where people are friendly, and if you're just looking for a place to just hang out and take a break from the game, that's definitely one of the places to go to.
Yeah, for sure. We're a welcoming group, so definitely swing by if you're a new player.
Right on. So kind of winding down the interview here. Just what are your thoughts on GU's future? I mean, obviously you mentioned you stayed on to the game even when the player base was small because of the NFT pool of it, but now what are you looking forward to for this game?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super bullish on the game. It's a ton of fun. I think in the same way Hearthstone is huge, I think this will be just as big as long as the team can execute on it, and as long as IMX actually works as we hope it will, right?
Right.
Once you can trade and buy cards without having to pay $50 gas fees, that's when the game really gets unlocked, right? Right now, you're still kind of in a scenario where you can't trade, you can't fuse, you can't buy. Like it may as well just be another Hearthstone, but actually a little worse because it's even tougher to transact, right? You can't buy things as easily. So I think once IMX gets released, and as it goes through its stages of release, and it gets easier for new players to buy cards, and as the team continues to develop the game, right? The game itself has gotten a ton better over the last year. December, but having seen it come from December of 2019, even a year before you joined, the game itself has made large strides in terms of the quality of the game itself. So I think that's going to continue. So yeah, no, I'm super bullish on the game. I think once IMX launches, they're probably going to put some marketing into it. We're going to get even more new users than we have right now. I think it's going to be a great entry point to people for the concept of NFTs. So I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think it's going to be huge for not only players that are about to join, but I think some of the players that have joined but recently, once they can see and transact those cards that they've been losing to, me one of them,
Right.
me one of them as well, the last few months. Yeah, but I think once we kind of are able to access those cards, it's just going to take it to a whole new level, and then new players coming in after that point will be like, wow, this is great. I need this card. I could just buy it instead of trying to open packs and randomly get it. I think that's going to be a huge differentiator. And I think along with IMX release, Mirage, I think the team might be, planning on, they have the next set coming up after Trial of the Gods because they have that revamp on the God powers coming up. So I think, I think they have big plans coming in real soon in succession. So I think you're right. We are at like sort of, the first step of a growth phase that's just gonna propel this game.
Yeah, 100%. We're still very early here, right? Like for most of the last year, this game's at about 1,000 players. Just in the last 2 weeks, they've been getting tons. I think we're up in the tens of thousands now.
Yeah.
This is gonna hit the hundreds of thousands, probably the millions this year, I would guess. Assuming IMX works, I
Right.
bet we hit at some point close to 1 million players this year if it
Wow.
works.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, no, if that does happen, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I don't know if you played your rank weekend games already, but this weekend it was we had a huge increase from last weekend, and last weekend was already a big increase, and we had a bigger one this past weekend, and the servers were struggling a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is without trading, right? So
Right.
yeah, no, I think it's going to be a massive influx once people can fuse and sell their cards that they're getting from playing, and once people understand how this concept works and it functionally works.
Right.
I think you're just going to get tons and tons of players.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be good for everybody. Um, Before we wind down, we mentioned that we talked a little bit about the growth of the player base, and just want to congratulate your Discord, TST Team Discord. You guys broke 200 members, correct?
Yeah, we just got over 200. We're growing fast. We're continuing to put out a bunch of content. Specifically, you mentioned we stream. We do a thing called TS Tuesdays.
Oh yeah.
So on Tuesdays, Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. here, we do back-to-back streams pretty much all day. Usually it starts in the afternoon and we go all the way through the night. So if you ever want to watch some streamers and see some top players from TST and ask us questions and see how we're doing, the Tuesdays are always a great day.
Yep, yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a link in the video description to the TST Discord and to TST Mirage's Twitch channel. Anything else you want to plug, Mirage?
No, I mean that's pretty much it. Like I said, join us on Twitch. We've got a YouTube channel you can check out for Team TST where we post some highlights that
All
we get
right.
from our TS Tuesday Twitch streams. So you can check out some highlights there if you're interested. We've got some articles that are written if you go to the Team Stream Team website, which is teamstreamteam.com. You can go check out there. So there's a bunch of locations where you can sort of get information about the game and all of that.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'll throw all those into the description for anyone interested in joining and checking them out. And it's definitely highly recommended. TST has the top players in the game currently. They're super consistent. Some would say very dominant. So I would think they're a good bunch of players to learn from, to hang out with, and they're super friendly and helpful. So highly recommended. All right.
Great.
Um,
Thanks. Appreciate it.
yeah, no, thank you for your time, Mirage. Anything else you want to close us out with?
Just welcome to all the new players watching.
Yeah,
You'll enjoy it. Trust me.
yeah, it's been a fun ride so far, and it's only going to get better.
Yep, that's great.
Alrighty. All right. Well, thanks again for your time, Mirage. Much appreciated. Thank you for all the information that you've shared, and also for letting the listeners slash viewers know more about you. And I'm definitely, I think, you know, the invitation to hang out with TST and to watch the streams. You guys will get to learn more about Mirage. And once the new players start getting up there and climbing up, and IMX drops and they get a little bit more competitive, you guys will be seeing TST Mirage's name opposite of you a lot. So right away now, I'm going to say good luck.
Yes, I'll echo it. Good luck to everyone I play against. Hope everyone has a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Mirage. Thanks again for your time, and we're going to end this interview.
All right, thanks. Good talking to you.
All right. Bye.